Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 68. This is developer's journey into making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Cocoa Heads community focused on Apple development. That primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and visionOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher in your own developer journey. All right.
Yes.
The WWDC edition 2024.
Yeah, this is part 2 because we did a preview of the last episode, and this one, if you're listening to us when it first drops, it's probably earlier than usual because we want to get it out. And I think we did a decent job of, we went over a lot of rumors, but I think we were pretty on the money about what we've been talking about with Apple and AI and stuff. There's so much that came out with WWDC this year. It was like, I still can't process it all. It's huge.
They speed ran through a lot of the OS specific features, and I think they pretty much saved a good chunk of that. Was it at least 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes for the Apple Intelligence?
Yep. Those rumors are right. Apple Intelligence.
So just for context, because even I'm still trying to wrap my brains around a lot of Apple Intelligence. How much of that is onboard, or for lack for? Well, let me reset. What is Apple Intelligence, and how is it different from, say, the LLMs or the ChatGPTs of the world?
Well, let's see does Apple have so Apple has their own little web page here to try to explain it. I can bring up for us to look at while we're talking this. But basically, Apple Intelligence is like their overarching brand for the use of so-called AI tools, like LLMs and diffusion models and all that kind of stuff in a privacy-centric way. And it's kind of 3 stages of I guess compute that are available. They're building as much as they can, it looks like, on device using the neural processors in the Apple Silicon. That's why the hardware requirements are pretty strict with this. You have to have an iPhone 15 Pro or an M1 or later laptop or desktop. Right. So I can't use it. I have a 14 Pro Max, and that doesn't work with it.
Wait, but let me check. But
do I have enough RAM?
Yes, I just barely cover the RAM.
Pro also.
Oh, you need 16 gigs of RAM. Yeah, you need 16 gigs of RAM, not the 8 gig. I can't believe they still sell 8 gig so-called Pro machines.
16 gigs of RAM to take advantage of Swift Assist,
which is the Xcode thing. So we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
I was explaining Apple Intelligence in a nutshell. There's stuff that happens on device. Then the system will decide whether it needs more compute or not, and then it'll go out to Apple's private cloud that they are running with, I guess, M2 Ultra chips in a very privacy-centric way. And they have a white paper somewhere about this. And then, finally, it can ask you if you want to go out to ChatGPT, which is using the 4.0 model. And if you get to that point, it will ask you on, from what I understand, on every time it wants to do that, you have to give it explicit permission, and you'll know exactly what data is going on. And they also, Apple claims that when it goes out to OpenAI, that it's not logged and your IP is obfuscated or something, and that it's the data is just used to process your command. It comes back. And when you're using Apple's private cloud, again, they're making a lot of claims that it's private, and they're going through extreme efforts to make sure even the hardware itself, from manufacturing to installation, hasn't been tampered with. There's no back doors, that kind of stuff. So I haven't read the paper that I think or the detailed explanation about it, but the whole tenor of Apple Intelligence, the way that Apple's approach this was privacy, as you might expect. And if we are to take them at their word, and I don't think they're lying or anything, they seem to be, in general, Apple's pretty good about privacy stuff. I think they're creating a system which is not only looks to me to be the most useful kind of combination of features and user interface to access this stuff, but also one that is actually seriously trying to keep it private. Now, of course, well, only time will tell. Let's see how the implementation is. But like, it looks like this is the best effort I've seen from the big companies to make these tools useful for everyday people. AI for the rest of us, they said, and also private. So we can go over some of the things that are in Apple Intelligence to make it a little more clear. We're looking at the webpage now. So they have all kinds of little things. So let's see. They're highlighting there's writing features. I mean, these are like things that are in other systems, but this is Apple's thing. So you can highlight text and change its tone and have it write things for you or summarize stuff. Proofread, there's like a proofread button. You can summarize things, get key points, turn things into a table. It's kind of like the things that everybody uses ChatGPT for, but they give you much friendlier UI to access this stuff, and it seems like they're being more restrictive.
One of the things that's interesting is like it's embedded in the entire system, right?
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's the typical Apple thing where they make it a feature that is integrated into the applications you're using or into Siri. We can talk about.
Right. How much of that? So when you say there's like 3 stages, right? There's like you said, because it has to understand, it uses the fact that it has access to all your information locally on device, for which then it has a fairly, it doesn't have a world context, but it has a more internal context, right? Of like all your related metadata, for lack of a better word, all your content, quote unquote. And then it will utilize that as almost like the index for which then it can pull from to provide information back to you in a way that feels like an assistant, right? So like what Siri should have been.
Yeah. So I think it's useful to distinguish. It's all kind of integrated in the system, but technically there's like different features that they're emphasizing. So there's like writing and communication stuff that's like summarization, organization of email messages. Let's see, transcription. You can transcript phone calls, which by the way does tell both parties that you're doing that, from what I read. So you can't just like record phone calls without someone knowing. Reduce, let's say you have like focus stuff, like basically anywhere you could think you'd want some kind of quote unquote intelligence, kind of adding a smart replies, stuff you've seen everywhere before, but integrated in a useful way. And then there's the Siri of it all, which is kind of, as you were describing, at least it's not clear to me if this is during the beta period or later, but when you activate Siri, it can take into account, at least eventually, the entire context of not only just what's on screen, but of your context, like your email, your messages, because Apple has access to all that stuff and it's all on device when it's doing this.
Right.
And so you'll be able to, ask Siri to useful questions and be like, what was the example? Like when I had to pick up my mom at the airport or something like that. It was like picking up stuff from the email, picking up stuff from a message that was sent, and that's really cool. And also the as we talked about before, like universal UI stuff, the LLM type, the models are using allow you to talk to Siri in a more natural way. And even if you make a mistake, they demonstrated that. They always use the same exact thing to demo it. So, it's like the Golden Path demo, I think, again. But they demo it where it's like if you misspeak a little bit and then correct it. Yeah, misspook, just like I did there. And then and they also said that that Siri will remember the last thing you just said, so you can kind of refer to it in the next command. So there must be some small context window that's being held. And, the reason that I think the phones need to be like the Pro, the 15 Pro and everything is because of that. You need a certain amount of RAM for any of this to work. I'm amazed that it works at all on device, frankly. I don't know how much of this exactly works on device, but I think it's impressive that any of this works on device. It's crazy.
I keep forgetting like a lot of the intention of your interactions with Apple Intelligence will be via the phone, right?
Yeah.
At least for this
or your computer.
particular, or your computer.
They're really focusing on the phone. They're all the marketing and stuff, and that's what most people have iPhones more than Mac.
Right, and it's almost like a bizarre upsell attempt, right? Because it's like, like you said, so in order for you to take advantage of Apple Intelligence, right, in any form or capacity, regardless of whatever the level,
yeah,
you would have to you would have to have like an iPhone 15
Pro.
Pro. That's
Because I think that had a different chip than the other phones did.
Yeah, the 15 had the old 14.
Yeah,
chip, 14 Pro or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think this is not ideal. I don't think Apple wanted this. I have a feeling that last year there was still chip problems, and that's why it was done. Though it seemed like it was very strange last year that the chip didn't seem to change for the phone that most people use. But
Sure.
it just is what it is. I don't know if it's I don't think it's designed to create an upgrade cycle, although it probably has that side effect, at least partially. And it's just more like going forward, after a year or two, everybody will be on a device pretty much of some sort that can handle this. And then
this feels like borderline, like it's kind of putting the tracks, laying out the tracks way earlier than the hardware is ready for, right? In a weird way, software is like way more out there, but like, okay, like, this is meant to placate the shareholders and whatever the stock,
Seems like it's working.
Yeah,
their stock is hilarious because like I think the funny part was like it was going down like borderline 2% during the middle of the keynote because AI was not mentioned at all, even though it was technically mentioned.
Yeah,
and only when they actually officially called it, like actually officially said artificial intelligence, did they actually decide? Did it actually finally go back up? Because the stock market's stupid.
But and this is true that it's affecting the stock and all, but I don't think Apple intends to like screw anybody over. It's just that the requirements for this technology are just pretty high, and it's like I think it's like the Pro. Maybe it would run on the older chips, but not to the level of performance that Apple is okay with. For instance, that's a possibility too. And it's just that Apple seems to be intent, and they want the experience to be a certain minimal level. And to them, I guess that means the 14s either can't at all do it or just can't do it to that level. And I think that's fine. It's because they're trying to do so much on device, I think, is part of the issue. And I think that is the Apple strength, and that's what they should be doing, and that's a good approach. And as they claim, they're making a private, everything private based. Data is never stored. Your requests are only used like once, and then they're making these claims of having some verifiable privacy promise, like to some aspects of the system can be audited, I guess, by third parties. Not the source code, I think, but like the binaries will be available or something like that. I haven't read all the details, but it's I don't think there's like a conspiracy like Apple's like, we're gonna make everybody upgrade. It's just the stuff is hard to work. And you're right, like it feels like we're on the cutting edge. Like Apple's like, we can make this work with 17 Pros and M1s, but that's it. Like you can't, and we're gonna have to.
There's a lot. Apple Intelligence aside, there are a lot of stuff that I've noticed in some of these videos that are way ahead in terms of like when they expect to see the fruits of that labor. And, normally it'd be like a week ahead. A year in advance of like, okay, like gaming is a good example, right? Like that is like, before you would almost laugh at the idea of the possibility that you can play a game at the quality level that you can probably like, like a reasonable PC could be, comparatively speaking, that would be laughable up until fairly recently. Even laughable to expect any game developers to be like, let's, AAA game developers to like, let's go on this platform. It makes sense. But with the game port kit, the ray tracing support in recent Macs and now iPhones, much better tooling for developing games or even just simply porting your game using this sort of, I forgot was a wine or I forgot the translation software is. But there's a lot of, but that's like one example, right? Vision OS, right? But there wasn't a lot announced with Vision OS, but if you look at the sample code, there's like a ton of sample code now. like even stuff for just Vision OS 1, but there's like, and the sample code are good, they're like, ones with like interactions between like three, there's an iPad, there's an iPhone, iPad version of this app with a Vision OS extension as well. So you have like a 3D model that's of a robot that's in all of these versions that you interact with. And it just like, it's one of those things that on some level, it's laying the groundwork, and then updated Reality Composer Pro with a Chimeline interface, and a few other like extra niceties that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah.
I think you also see it, this like long game approach, like, as you're right. I mean, this stuff would have taken a long time to do. It's not like they just did this in the last like 9 months or something. But you also see it in the announcement of Apple Intelligence, how they're saying, well, it's going to start out with this, and they're saying it's going to take, in the future, they're going to add more to it. And it's unclear to me what features are going to be out at first. And then the ChatGPT integration is just the first model. I saw some snippet of an interview or something where someone a higher executive was saying that, in the direction is for you to be able to bring the models that you want to use for things, like maybe some model works better for you for source code, generation. Something works better for writing. Something works better for whatever images, and then you'll be able to plug that in to the system. So it's like your iPhone. If we just talk about your iPhone, but your Mac in general, but your iPhone can hook into eventually any kind of so-called AI system that you want to use, just like you can use the pro version of OpenAI as an opt-in if you pay for it already.
One of the weird sneaky things, I forgot the name of it. Was it private cloud computing? I forgot that.
They call it private cloud compute. That's what they say on their marketing.
So what I was thinking about is like, there is something missing in this whole story in the WWDC. Like, I think of it similar to like I think about Xcode Cloud or the WeatherKit API. And it's like, if I'm Apple, why would I not offer a way for you to provide the access to these servers, right? These M2 Ultras, whatever, to have the model running on one of their computes, and they have an extension, be the extension of like a larger model extension on their servers. And
you mean like have ChatGPT run on Apple's silicon?
Well, a version, like your custom version, right? And be an extension of your app.
I mean, if I understand correctly, the private cloud compute is Apple models. It's not OpenAI models. But what if Apple made their own?
What if Apple becomes the AWS version?
No, they're not going to do it. I don't believe they're ever going to do it. Well, one of the issues I think is, I mean, I guess maybe that is some outside possibility, but Apple's strength is in the vertical integration. So they created everything, even down to the hardware, down to the logistics, the manufacturing process for the servers, the verification process for the hardware, all this stuff to make sure that it works for their implementation. And they have I think it's their own models running in the private cloud. It's only third-party stuff if you get to that third level, and only with explicit permission. That's what it seems like. Otherwise, they're trying. They were saying in the keynote, we're trying to expand the boundary of like the privacy boundary to this private cloud compute, because you just can't do everything on device that you might want to do. So they're trying to find the middle ground.
Did the Apple private compute or whatever process your custom intents?
It's unclear to me where the processing happens on device. I'm going to guess it's on device.
I think it's on device. Yeah.
Only so you don't have access to any of that.
That's sweet.
I don't know.
None of your custom intents get like rolled into your custom model that gets processed.
See, one of the problems is I haven't gone through. Have you gone through?
No, I haven't.
So I don't know the details about how it's all going to work. We were basically running off what we saw.
Because as a developer, that's like the most interesting thing. Maybe app intents are finally useful. Like,
oh yeah, I also heard there's going to be a wait list.
Whoa! How is it not useful now?
Have you ever used it?
It was very limited.
Like I haven't. I don't think I used to use OmniFocus with some app, and then that like stopped working or something. Like I used to just want to add things to the inbox, and that didn't even work reliably anymore. So,
I mean, granted, I'm being slightly facetious there, but
Only slightly.
Whatever.
Only
You had
slightly.
these like very limited number of like shortcut slots that you had access to, and the way to like invoke the shortcuts were like we had to have very specific phrases, and it was just
that was really annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was one of the things that there were a couple of things that were really annoying about that being one of them. The other one was like it felt like a hard thing for discoverability for that.
Yeah,
and I think we struggled a lot with like, it's particularly with Siri intents. Like Siri intents was like you always had to be specific about like if I wanted to use this particular intent, I had to at least emphasize that this is for this app, right?
Yeah, you would have to have your app name like in the whatever in the command,
right? And you would have to, and if you want it to be a little more like, if you want to like have, you'd almost have to ask the user to create a shortcut of their own shortcut phrase for their own if they wanted to just not have to do that, right?
Right. Yeah, you'd have like a certain number of like preloaded shortcuts that you could. I think it was like 10. It was like it was capped, and
10,
you could only
that's
provide
that magic number again.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what the new update with this Apple Intelligence integration, how that works.
Yeah, I'm trying to like look through the documentation, but it's it's like Apple documentation. It's
might be doing this one too early. We haven't got a chance to watch all of the videos, and not even all of them are even released yet.
That's the thing. I mean, that's the thing about WWDC videos in general is there's so much that they dump on you. Like in this case, it's kind of interesting. So usually day one is just the keynote and the State of the Union. And then they give you like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to like digest like 20 at a time or something. This year, they chose to say, okay, we're going to shorten the State of the Union to be like 1 hour. And then we'll give you like 1 hour to breathe or maybe grab like early lunch. And then boom, we're going to drop 20-ish like videos day one. And which is nice, but
yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at the intense stuff, but I'm hoping that it just means you can. What I want to be able to do, and we discussed this before, is to be able to have your app just be useful in a Siri command, like a realistic, human command, and have it like do something. And I do not know. I'm curious to see how shortcuts, if that got any kinds of updates this year, any kind of changes. I did not know. I didn't see anything about it. I'm curious because there's actually now, and there's widgets like everywhere now in the system. Like there's so many. We've talked about before. Culture, we've had this whole spiel for a long time about how like apps are now ever more integrated into the system. So it's not just your core experience anymore. It's also the widgets and the intents, Siri intents, and Spotlight search, and different areas of the operating system. Now you have Control Center. You can put buttons in widgets essentially, and you can have. You have widgets on the home screen. You have widgets on the lock screen, which you could change those buttons now. Like you can no longer have to. No longer will I accidentally turn on my flashlight. I'll accidentally turn on whatever I put in that button. So
you can accidentally open your Ford Pass.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. I can accidentally open my Ford Pass. Oh, they also added that action button on the 15s. You can have. There's so many places now that you can access parts of an app, and I think that's. You called it. You called it. I think years ago. At this point, that was the direction Apple's going.
I mean, I think it's still kind of funny that even to this day, a lot of companies and even app developers in general do not really pay attention to that as like a core part of the user experience on mobile. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised, but it's also like, nobody really, if you look at your widgets, like. Not many put anything meaningful on there, or they're not well thought out. Maybe live activity for like sports specific stuff does actually show up, so that's nice now. But it took like several years for them to like start getting into that, and it's tough because like it's hard to get out of that mentality of like everything is app specific.
Yeah.
Even in our company, like they don't even think about it as much. I mean, they do, but they're not particularly deep diving into like what that means.
And Apple Intelligence, maybe that's a way that will drive more developers to think that way, because in order to be part of the useful Siri workflows, assuming people pick up on this, because then you're going to want to do it. I think the thing I was excited about this WWDC is when Apple does something, it tends to go mainstream. I feel like starting this fall, to whatever degree these features are available, is when you start to see the mainstream adoption of some of these so-called AI tools. Like, we may seem to us that it is all highly adopted already, but that's just not true. On the edges, you'll see people using some of this stuff, like if they use Photoshop or if they use Canva, they'll occasionally use some things. But this level of every single day, or like your most personal device, you're just doing things you normally do, and now these tools are now part of that workflow. I mean, that's going to start when it's available on people's iPhones, and that's exciting, and that is going to be a big incentive if you're an app developer of any kind to really take seriously. I don't know what we call this, like the componentization of apps. Like, what did you have a phrase for it, Cocho? Like, your app is more than just your core experience. It's like all the little pieces that the operating system hooks into.
I mean, it's hard because like are
atomizing your app into little intense.
It's like getting its hooks into the system. So it's in many, like, it's excuse the phrasing, but like the tentacles get in all different areas, right? Of just like, okay, I'm in, like you said, I'm in the control panel, I'm in the lock screen, I'm on the home screen. It's a widget. I'm in your search, right? If you get your thing, I forgot what the term is. Was it discoverable or discovery? I forgot that it would actually show up as a part of your search terms, and it has context. Maybe it shows up as a focus item. There are multiple ways.
Things. Apps are tentacle monsters, is what you're saying,
right? And the point of it, a lot of it, is to deep link it back into your app, but like, you can expose certain features just to make it tantalizing to come back to the app. And I know, like, there's this whole talk about engagement and blah blah blah, but like, app ultimately has to be useful.
I mean, I've seen some talk online. It was like, this is some random account or something. I think it was something like it was kind of downplaying the idea that apps need to have a core experience. They're just going to be, everything's just going to be through these like AI workflows. I don't think that's true. I think that these Siri things will help you get stuff done, but your app still needs a really good core experience, or like, why is someone installing it? But what you want is to be able to, as you said, hook into the system in the appropriate places. So, and when the way Apple does this is, you often are providing an experience of some sort. So even if it's just like some kind of intent, you're still providing metadata and like stuff to help drive that. If it's a widget, you're providing like UI for it, and if some user's taking action, it's often going back to your app and launching it into some state. So it's like you still got to take that into account. But I think you may be right that until now, it's still, even in my experience, it still seems less the norm. Like that it's well integrated. Apps are well integrated into the operating system in a lot of ways. Apple's apps are, obviously, but third-party apps, I'm trying to think of like third-party apps to do a really good job with this, and I'm kind of drawing a blank at the moment.
Even a basic job, like I'll use Overcast's widget just to have like the recent one.
The widget's
but I
nice.
I can't. I don't understand for right. So I don't understand for life for me why every content media one doesn't have their own, right? Because you immediately get like continue watching like row, right? Like I would love it so that I could just deep link back into the video that you want me to watch, unless you don't want me to continue watching, some TV and continue to binge my show, right? And like A, you get so much screen real estate for the value. B, you give them a direct deep link back into a video that you want them to watch anyway. And then C, you can give them custom widgets of all kinds, right? It doesn't have to be continue watching. It could be like surprise me, or some kind of silly tile row of some kind of custom row that they would like, right? And you still build engagement. You still get you get that for free because it's a literal shortcut deep into your app.
Yeah. And so like because this is the WWDC episode, what else besides Apple Intelligence, or there was announced that we thought was really interesting? I have a bunch of stuff. We got the the home screen updates so you can rearrange things, your app icons, and color them, which I think is I heard the screams of designers everywhere. It was like through the force.
You know what designers are screaming about more than that, believe it or not?
What?
Is and that is a big scream, to be fair. I feel like I don't know if they know it yet, but the tab bars change.
On iPad only though, right?
iPad only.
They only reference it as iPad. Like, you mean like the tab bar where it kind of like
the tab
goes
bar
whoosh from the top to the side, which I don't know if I like that.
I mean, that can actually be configured, but the weird part is that's only on the assumption that you have, like, basically you actually have a sidebar nav that has a ton of stuff, and then you want to contextualize into something smaller.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how it worked, but it's by default a tab bar, right? So it's actually usually at the bottom or in this. Like,
so now it's actually going to be at the top.
Yeah. So if you have one at the bottom, it'll automatically show up at the top instead.
I think it's and floating, right? Doesn't it float?
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious that entire feature is essentially the thing that there's an entire WWDC video from years ago about how not to do. I think we talked before where there's a video, you can still find it from some years ago now, where they're like, don't make home tabs, and guess what Apple's done to like things now? They have home tabs everywhere. But they also were talking about don't have hamburger menus, and like, what is that feature other than a hamburger menu that could transform into a tab bar and vice versa? Like, it's literally that. It's funny to me. I just found it amusing.
I guess it depends on, like, because in their world, like, hamburger buttons was always like something you hide stuff in, right? Whereas a sidebar nav usually was always exposed.
Yeah, that's why on iPad it's not as egregious.
Right.
It's usually it's exposed unless you tell it to not be. Like it's like kind of like a user's choice.
You can set it as a developer to defaultly expose or not expose it.
But then it's like
arguably it's arguably weird to integrate it to navigate through, because like if you don't know it's there, you kind of forget it's there. You kind of like, what does this do? But it's got the same discovery issues that hamburger buttons always had. So if you have it open by default, maybe that's fine.
It's a weird little UI. I'm gonna have to try it out and see how it works.
It's very weird.
It seems weird. And the animation seems a little weird to me. It's like whoosh. I think
one thing that I'm personally psyched about, I don't know if designers are psyched about, is the zoom transitions.
Yeah, actually, I'm psyched about that too, because you know how often you want to do that, and it's hard. You just don't.
Well, here's the thing. You know where you have your navigation links?
Yeah.
You set that so it works the same way like a push and pop navigation works.
Oh wow, yeah, that's
but
cool.
You set the you set the. Do you remember the name? How they called it? Like zoom something. Zoom. It's like a modifier that's like
the
zoom.
Same
something.
as like a match geometry effect.
Yeah.
Modifier where you like pass in
the
what is it called?
No.
The like context. I forget what the name is for the animation, and it's like the thing they told you not to. It's another one of those things they told you not to do before, but now they're supporting it.
Where we enhance your UI.
The context
go to the enhance your UI. We were just looking at the list. That's the one. It's the first item. So you can probably go down
zoom transition.
It's like
zoom
the first
transition.
Item. So that's what it looks like, right? So there's
we're looking at the code right now.
It's even called match transition source.
Yeah. I'm sure under the hood it's doing exactly what you're saying.
Oh, okay. It's just a convenient way of accessing it.
It is as if they literally looked at Netflix's iPad app and said, let's do that.
Oh, is that what it does? I haven't actually used it in a while.
Yeah. It's literally doing that.
But it seems like wait, did they really, where did they ever say not to do it? It seems like a useful thing to do if you have a grid of like things that you're jumping between.
I think foundationally that it makes the most sense there, right? For grid of content.
Yeah, I mean that's why it seems because it keeps the spatial. I mean, they do it on the home screen for app icons. They've done it for years, where it like kind of zooms in and out. It's similar.
I think the whole thing was like the match geometry effect was supposed to like stay in one single views like code, and you shouldn't be like passing it around into other views that open up. And this is what that's doing. That it's passing it to a navigation link.
But I mean, the effect itself is what I'm talking about. I mean, the effect itself is useful, however you implement it, because it keeps the spatial awareness, so that so you can zoom into something and then zoom back out again, and you haven't gotten lost wherever you are. So I think it's especially useful. You have like a grid of things on the screen that are that you can jump around.
They haven't quite updated the App Store yet. It actually has weird different interactions depending on which app or which category. But one of the things like that is kind of like, it almost feels like a precursor for like being able to like build your own custom stuff that they're just testing this idea out on. It doesn't feel like that should be its own isolated thing. It's like, why was this such a big deal?
What, the Zoom
all
transition?
The animation, like Zoom transition is great. Don't get me wrong. Like
why is that
a ton of utility? But why is that the only thing?
Oh well, I mean that makes sense. Apple will often give you something, and then like the next year there'll be a more
like a whole
it'll be a more granular way. Like SwiftData, they did that this year. They added they added an expansion to data stores. You can make your own custom data store.
Okay.
Which means like their example was you could have like a JSON file backing your data, and then still use SwiftData.
Core data is like they're going to kill core data.
I don't think so, because it's still. I mean, the default store is still that, and it fully supports all their features.
Themselves a way to like not use that anymore.
It's possible. Basically, they're building APIs for you to build a totally custom data store if you want to, and then they provide like pre-made stuff to help.
What if they're going to build a new like database from the ground up, right? Instead of SQLite, maybe they're actually saying you could use core data, but maybe we'll come up with what is like a NoSQL but not crappy. Maybe it's Foundation DB or something like really lightweight. It has to be lightweight, but basically something that you can transition to smoothly. Like not Mongo, please no Mongo.
No, but I mean that could be the case, and they have something called
that you can put whatever you want in there. So.
Right,
you can create whatever your backing store is. But their example in the one video which is short about it, is like a simplified JSON backed store. But I guess, but what's interesting is that, and they kind of hand wave like examples. I guess like if you have a cloud service that you want to have as a backing, or it's a way for you to use SwiftData context, and use the queries and all that other stuff you're used to, but then store your data however you want to. If you're willing to put in the work, you can store it in whatever.
So you heard your comment about how it was slow and said, whatever, you do it yourself. Then.
It's not slow for querying. It was just it might be because of the actor that I was going through, because I'm. Anyway, it's. I haven't tried the new version.
Slightly related but not related.
What's that?
It seems like by default, every view, any SwiftUI view, will be defaulted as a main actor, which I'm not sure how to feel about that.
I thought they were. Views are always main actor.
I think now. I don't know if they were explicitly that,
but you don't have to.
I think you still had to explicitly add a main actor. I don't know if it was inherently a main. Like view controllers were definitely like switched to being technically a main actor, right, in UIKit. But one of the big things that they said for this version is like now by default, without question, they're all defaultly main actors. And this is strictly around SwiftUI views, not views in general. In terms of like layout views, which I'm still, I'm okay with.
Oh, I guess maybe before this, I'm just reading some random article from somebody. In the view protocol, the body was explicitly marked main actor, but maybe not the rest of it. So like the whole thing is main actor now. By default, in that Swift 5.10 or 6, or is it
That's
like
Swift 6.
That's
what,
6.
6?
So,
Yeah.
So you have
Okay.
to like adopt the new Swift
Yeah, I
6.
did see a brief session on, or I saw something where they were. Oh yeah, one of the sessions on maybe it was on Xcode. They were talking about how you adopt incrementally like all these new features. You can turn them on one at a time, get the warnings, and fix them, and turn on the next thing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff coming in Swift 6. We didn't even have a chance to talk about that.
The good thing is I haven't watched the video for that one yet. So what's new in Swift?
Dude, I watched the Xcode Essentials one, and I finally understand why I hate the tabs so much in Xcode. Because they finally explained in like really briefly what the tabs are. They said the tabs that show up that always it aggravates me because why is it sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not there?
Yeah.
It's because they stick around when you edit the file. Otherwise, there's a special tab that just changes to whatever files you're accessing that you haven't edited. And then you either have to edit the file or you have to like right click on the tab and say like keep this tab, and then it'll keep it. And it's been driving me crazy. Maybe I missed it when they originally released these tabs, the explanation, but it has been infuriating trying to like figure out why the tabs will sometimes have a file there and sometimes not. And so maybe I was just not understanding their mental model for it. But I was like, oh, so that's why there's like one tab which intentionally changes all the time. It's not like a bug or something.
It's always in italic or something.
It's
like
the
that.
italic one, yeah. And
what's funny is like I will do this thing where like I'll jiggle it a little bit, that actual tab, and that will actually like set it to
I was like, oh my god. Actually, that Xcode Essentials usually
double click on it.
Yeah, you have to do something to make it stick
interact
around.
with it. Yeah.
You have to either edit the file or you have to like interact with the tab to make it stick around.
I
They
also
also
double click on the tab, and then it changes from italic to
like.
But this is not how anything else works. It's not how any other tab system I use works. If I open a file, I expect the tab to stay there. That's what it annoys me. That's why.
I do want to say, in terms of like what's new in SwiftUI, one of the things that got really excited for some absurd reason was to be able to add state to your previews. So you can add viewable state. Constant? Yeah, so no more dot constants anymore. You can just immediately create a state variable that you can work in the preview now, and you can test the state.
You mean the preview? The previewable thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. And
which is what is it doing under the hood?
Quite nice.
Is that a macro or is it?
I think it's like a pseudo. I think it's a macro of some kind.
Because I'm guessing it just creates I'm guessing it creates a container view. I haven't opened Xcode 16. I was just
that would actually make a lot of sense,
because that's basically. And then the other thing they had was these traits, where the big example was, I guess, sample SwiftData. So like example, like, and so you can set up the example container and have it. So you pass it in as like part of you pass it into the preview macro, and then it's available within the context, I guess, of the preview. So it's like, so you can have it set up so it's like automatically available, so you don't have to do all the boilerplate to get everything working.
Right. So you can actually set like preview, whether it be in dark mode, maybe like size class.
You do all kinds of stuff.
All those modifiers in there and put that in the trait, and then that'll carry over, and you don't have to repeat. Yeah, that's. But
great. The previewable thing is great too, because it's like you don't have to like jump through all these hoops to get something.
There's like little niceties. I still need to like explore them, especially like I'm still not familiar with like the custom container thing. Still like
for what custom? Oh, I didn't look at that yet. I haven't looked at that yet at all. I did see the when they were talking about it in the keynote or the State of the Union. I was like, oh, that looks cool, but I don't know anything about it. The thing I'm excited about, I have to try, is will previews now have a new like build system or something? So maybe it could fix my problem with the module. You don't
have to rebuild when you run in the simulator versus previews.
Which means maybe I can get previews to work with the SPM modules now reliably. When you know how there's all these problems with you trying to get previews to work. You have to select the module you're in, and then it has problems if you're like trying to have dependencies. I wonder if it fixes any of that, because
if you like skip the indexing or something, then you have to close Xcode or delete all your.
Well, the bigger problem, the problem was like if you ran it in a simulator, things would work obviously, but if you tried to run in the preview, it wouldn't work because it would only be able to see the stuff in the module. It would just never compile right. It just wouldn't work half the time. I would always have problems, and I know a lot of people have had problems with getting previews to work with SPMs. So I'm curious to see if this addresses that at all. And the Swift testing, I saw that I saw that talk. That was
Coder,
actually,
I know you're looking forward to that.
Swift testing's nice, man. So you could do cool stuff in there, like tag them and create like custom, groupings.
I will concur. I looked at that because I did see. I forgot if it was in the State of the Union or in some other talk, but
no more.
I just remember thinking, it's like, okay, it's nice. You can categorize, like you said, you can categorize, you can tag things, you can set them up in nice formats, and you can like, they have better CI support in the ways you run the tests. Blah blah blah. It still tests.
Well, yeah, usually test things. But look, they have this expect macro, which is super flexible, and you no longer have a gazillion XC test things,
Do they have
XC things. You just have this. What?
Do they have ways to do better mocking? Because I remember that's always been an issue.
I mean, that's more of an architectural style problem, I think. But no, I don't think it says anything about that. But I'll look at the details. I think in TCA, in the composable architecture, their testing system allows you to easily kind of substitute in mock stuff.
Sure.
So I don't know about this, but the fact is, this is a much simpler way of setting up writing tests, and you don't have to name them tests. You can name whatever you want. You can give them like human readable names.
So you don't have to.
Nice. This will show up in like CI too. The stuff will come out. You can give these like let's see what else I have in there. And I like the fact that everything's just expect. You can just put an expression in, and then it just understands what you're trying to do, and it does comparisons It's like, it's really slick, and it removes a lot of the friction. Now, I did watch them do the test, and then when they would build to run, it still seemed really slow to get the test to run. So we'll see in real life, because I mean, it's so slow. I don't understand.
You know what you
slow.
should try to do. You
What?
should see if when this becomes available, you should see if Swift Assist can do the conversion for you from, was it XC? Is it X?
Well, you can run both XC tests. Yeah.
Sorry, But can you convert XC test to this?
They
new
talked
Swift
about that.
test?
Yeah. You can. Well, I know. I don't wonder if you mean automatically. I don't know. They did go through converting XC test to Swift testing, and one of the cool features is what?
Is there a conversion tool, or can you use like Swift Assist for that?
I don't know. They didn't mention either one of those cases. They just showed you how to do it, and they did it by one example they used was you can have parameterized tests. So instead of having like 12 tests, and the only difference is each one has a different input file for your testing, you can have one test that takes in all of the different content you want to pass into it, and then the one test will be run multiple times, and each one of those tests will have its own unique context and everything, so they won't clobber each other. And then and then you'll be able to, when it actually fails, you can actually interrogate it and see exactly which one of the things that you passed in failed. It's really,
that is pretty nice.
Really slick. Yeah, like
nice.
So if you ever watch the composable architecture testing stuff, the videos they did, they had this really good like error messages and stuff that would tell you what was happening and like what failed and stuff. And they kind of have a similar thing here, where it will give you useful messages about like what specifically happened and what went wrong, and you can like drill into it a little bit in the UI. Very nice, very nice. So I'm excited. And Swift testing is not new right now. It's been out for months, I think. It's been available.
Right. As
but this is the first time seeing a talk about it. So very cool. I will be trying to use it. And otherwise, I mean, you do it. You can use XC test and Swift testing at the same time. It's no problem. You can. Their big emphasis this year was incremental adoption. I noticed they were saying two things. I got three messages: Apple Intelligence, incremental adoption of things, and also native is the best. Native coding is the best. That's the other thing I got.
I got that from the State of the Union, but were they sprinkling that everywhere?
Well, I don't know. I just got it from the State of the Union, I guess. But they said that they said it multiple times, essentially. So,
well, they stuck it up on a slide.
Yeah, it was on a slide, which is like reminiscent of when they said SwiftUI is the best way. Right now,
SwiftUI is the best is the best thing replacement for like C++ or some like hot take like that. Do you remember
Swift
that?
is like the
Yeah,
best
Swift
replacement.
is the best replacement for like
I was like,
C++.
Rust still
I was
has
like,
something
whoa,
to say about that.
yeah, that's a very spicy hot take.
We are all hitting Aaron's limit here on the podcast.
Yes.
So is there anything else, Aaron, before you have to go, that you want to make sure we discuss here if you have a minute?
I was interested in seeing how that iPhone mirroring on Mac works.
Oh, that's going to be interesting.
That is cool. I'm going to assume you need to have your Apple IDs match, which sucks for work, but pretty neat. I've only done the mirroring with like QuickTime, which is not the same thing. This allows you to drag and drop files between the two devices, and we talked about this briefly in the when we were in the Zoom call about this. It's like being able to more fully utilize the compute you have available in your phone. So it's like Apple's kind of taking this approach where you have an iPad, you have a laptop, you have a phone, and now you can kind of more easily integrate them and use them and the apps on them together. That's really cool.
Is that just for the iPhone that mirroring works on?
Don't know. That's the only thing they demoed.
Right, because that would be really cool if you could do both at the same time. So you'd have your iPad and your iPhone. You can,
and your Vision
exchange
Pro.
files
and your Vision Pro.
So let's say, for example, I have my Procreate app, and maybe I want to like post the image from my Procreate app to my Instagram if I had one, right? Or my Threads or whatever, X or whatever, right? It'd be pretty cool to be doing the drag and drop there and not have to like open up each one or do some like other interactions. Like if that's a bad example of a workflow, but like as an example.
If I was making a utility type app, right, for an iPhone, I might be thinking about how is this useful on a desktop environment, and making sure that it like will work well with this type of sharing, because it kind of opens up another avenue for your application to be useful outside of maybe what you originally thought it was only used for. So if it's an iPhone only app, you can now be at least somewhat useful on the desktop too, without having to build an entire desktop app, because there is the ability to like share some kinds of data between applications and bring it in to the Mac in a very native way.
A really good example is to say, hey, look, I want to take I do a scan, like an object 3D model scan that we use. And then I want to, instead of like generating the low poly version of that, like the low res version of the 3D model that you can only do on an iPhone, at least right now, as far as I know, you can take all the HDIC files that normally it generates. Usually it's like 79 to like 90 files, depending on how much surface you cover. And you can bring that to the Mac, right? And then have like maybe do a drag and drop to a Mac version of an app or a utility app that you built. And it would run the high res version of CreateML to create a good, proper point cloud that would actually generate a really clean 3D model with phototelemetric data mapped onto it, right? And then that would be a really great way to do like 3D assets that are hyper realistic in a very clean fashion, right? To take advantage of that ability.
Yeah.
And this would be much more of an internal tooling or pipeline thing, but at least for like an independent developer. But like stuff like that is like a nice shortcut. But I don't know.
Before we wrap up, I just want to do 3 finalies we got this year. We got finally number 1, Passwords.app. They now took the passwords feature from settings and turn it into a app that you can use independently. That is very well. That was very good. Number 2 is Tap to Cash. So you no longer have to share your phone number with people you just want to send, some money to. And of course, number 3, the Holy Grail. We've been waiting for this forever. It's finally here, and it is more than we could ever have imagined. It is a calculator app on iPad. Thank you, Apple. Thank you. It's actually a pretty cool calculator app, but thank you, Apple. It's only taking how many versions? We finally have a calculator.
They had to combine it with math notes.
Is it combined? Math Notes is a cool thing. Math
That
Notes
is a
is
cool
actually
thing.
looks really cool. I don't know if it'll work on my iPad Mini, or is it one of those AI things? I do not know. But it
maybe
is.
it's a RAM thing.
I don't know. I don't know what they're see. Some of these features, I actually have no idea what they'll run on and what they won't run on, because everything in my head is confused with Apple Intelligence branding. So I don't know.
But it's like local storage one, right? Is it
Math
using,
Notes might just be an app that you can run on anything that runs 18. I don't know. We'll find out. But anyway, that was my 3 finalies. Yep. We're holding Aaron back from leaving, so we have to wrap things up. Final words. That was my final word. Final words from you guys.
There's lots of videos to watch over the next week.
All right. Well, that is all we're going to talk about for today. You can learn more about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're generous, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your podcast platform of choice is, and share us with all your developer friends. This is what happens when I rush. And one more thing. So instead of doing jokes, which is my tendency, programmer jokes, I would like all of us to say, I mean, we might have kind of covered it in some way, but what we haven't talked about. Say one thing that they're actually, as a developer, that they're actually excited about exploring for the WWDC videos that we haven't talked about. One extra item.
Man,
I'll start. So there is a feature with PencilKit that allows you to build custom tools. I'm really excited to get in deep dive into that, because there's the first time in a while that PencilKit has gotten anything interesting, and I want to see how flexible that tooling is. So that's it for me. Also, there is a drawing app in Spatial, a drawing app sample app for Vision OS that I really want to test out, because I think that's a hidden killer app idea that needs to be fully realized. That's it for me. Aaron, what do you got that you're excited about? It can be whatever.
Yeah, I'm looking at these new Vision OS things. I haven't got a chance to watch any of the new Vision OS 2 stuff. So
there is a lot of sample code. There's actually sample code for Vision OS that's even still usable in Vision OS 1. So, I'll send Steve a link that hopefully he can pass on to the show notes. And finally, Steve, what do you got? What is on your wish list?
We already talked about a list of things I was interested in, like SwiftData and stuff.
Swift test.
I think Swift testing. Actually, I'm going to say.
Not too excited about that.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm excited about it. I'm going to say animations. I know they have a lot of. I didn't watch any of the stuff yet, but I have not really been big on doing a lot of animations besides like the common ones. So I'm actually excited to see what's available for making interesting animations and transitions, because for me, I haven't done that a lot before. So I'm interested. Especially because
you can use SwiftUI animations in your UI kit view.
Yeah,
UI views.
It's very cool. Yeah. There's a lot of there's just so much stuff that I want to look at, and that doesn't even take into account like Vision, and which I don't have one, so I'm not as into it.
What is that Finance Kit?
I think Finance Kit is what already came out a few months ago with apps like YNAB.
Right, yeah.
I think this is what it is they use, and now they have a video about it.
Got it.
It made my phone almost catch fire. That was
what, you're burning money?
I don't know if it was like a YNAB thing or a bug or finances, but it was like I was trying to do it, and then one day it's kind of stopped working. I tried to remove the linkage and add it again, and it would just sit there and run and run and run and run and run, like burning CPU time, and I don't know what it was doing. So hopefully that's fixed. Yeah, maybe. Hopefully whatever that bug was, wherever it was in the app or the framework, has been fixed. But it's actually pretty cool, because it's been working reliably for me for a while now in YNAB. That's what I use, and it's actually very cool to do your Apple Pay call thing, and then like less than a minute later, usually you go open the app and it's like just in there as a pending transaction, like in your budget. You don't have to type in as much anymore, which is really convenient.
Very cool. Well, till next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always. I will do this thing where I'll jiggle it a little bit